Okay, it is 5 o'clock on Thursday, April 22nd. I'd like to call to order a special meeting of the Wausau Board of Education. Before we go to agenda item 2, I just want to address the special meeting policy. 164.2 is the special meeting policy, and it says that a special meeting of the board shall be held upon the written request of any board member, provided there's compliance with the following notice provisions and state law. This request did not go to me, Dr. Hilt, so can you just confirm for the board that you did receive this request in writing?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and was that by email or by text message?
By email.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on, we have agenda item number 2. This is to discuss mask requirements for the Wausau West Pop Concert, which begins tomorrow night.
Would you like me to begin? So for people who are watching, either in the audience or online, and for the board members, first of all, I just want to thank you very much for being here tonight. And I want the people at home, the staff and the students and the families to know that with just 24 hours notice, all 9 board members showed up. And I just want to note that because it demonstrates yet again the commitment that people who run for the school board have for the school community and the broader community, and so thank you for being here. Along those lines, I also want to say that this year obviously has been divisive on many points, and it's when we're all focused on the needs of kids, there's really should be nothing personal about this, right? Maybe we disagree about how to best support our students or our families. Doesn't mean anybody cares more or less for students. And if we can't have a healthy, respectful disagreement, how do you even have a functioning democracy, if I could take it that far? So, before we open up for board discussion tonight, I just wanted to recognize, again, the dedication and just remind everybody, regardless of the outcome of the vote, this board cares about kids, and whatever the decision is, we will continue to do our best to support them moving forward. So before we take up the agenda, I just want to remind people that this is just asking about allowing students, just for the Wausau West Pops concert, just for this year, to perform without masks. This would not inform any other events because of the way this was posted. Okay? So I guess before we share any more information, we should seek a motion.
Or we can discuss it first before we craft a motion. We could do it either way.
Well, before we make any motions, I have a question. So Lee is here via phone. Someone via phone, are they allowed to make motions and vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Not in closed session.
Right.
Thank you.
I make a motion, so what is your motion, Pat, and then you'll need a second.
So is there a motion on the table yet?
I didn't write it here. The motion would be to allow student performers at this year's Wausau West Pops concert to perform without masks. Is that accurate? All right.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and now we can have discussion, which will start with Dr. Hilt's presentation.
All right, thank you. So we've been in the middle of this conversation for months. We know kind of the arguments that would support students not wearing masks. We know the arguments that would support students continuing to wear masks. So all I want to provide tonight are a few pertinent facts for this particular decision. First of all, we did go back and review the latest Wisconsin School Music Association guidance that came out just a month ago, March of 21. And there were many recommendations about mitigation, but I just included the one that they still recommend all musicians should wear masks. Ironically, they recommend that both indoors and outdoors. And just as a note, WSMA also, they are the group that oversees the solo and ensemble performances, which are a major event in the life cycle of musicians at the school level. Those are still being held virtually, just as a note. We did check with our Wausau nursing staff today. They reported that, again, the CDC continues to recommend masks as an effective mitigation practice. So I say those things to let you know that no guidance has changed, at least from WSMA or CDC, with respect to masks and music. A few facts about the Pops concert. You can see them in front of you, but just for the people at home, I'll summarize them. There will be no large choirs at the Pops concert this year. And for those of you who have been to the Pops concert, you know that's a major change. That was one of the major changes related to the situation with COVID. Secondly, just a note, there are 22 acts. You can see that there are 12 solo acts, 4 duets, and 6 groups, which would contain 3 to 6 people. Those, if there are people, they will continue to be socially distanced. The time frame is always important when we're talking about transmission. So the longest single act is 4 minutes long, and that's important. For instance, when we do contact tracing, 15 minutes of exposure is an important data point. The audience would all be masked. They're also blocking off the front row, so the closest that the audience would be to performance is about 15 feet or 20 feet. They are providing a virtual option with a live stream link, and students would all wear their masks. If the board gave permission, they would just take them off for the performance, for those few minutes. So that's kind of the data points for the Pops concert, and I apologize. Many other staff are involved in interviews, and we're not able to come over here tonight, so you're stuck with me. Dr. Rauscher, also a volunteer. She's quite knowledgeable about a number of things. She's here, and a few other folks. So just a couple other notes. We've had a number of other indoor activities in the district. They've all been required to wear masks to this point. Of course, that was the board policy. And lastly, one of the things we want to be just cognizant of is that we, and this is a conversation I had with Dr. Rauscher and Mrs. Lloyd earlier today. The staff have done incredible amounts of work to plan and prepare a number of really important activities to kids like this, but there are others as well, including graduation and other things. We want to make sure, we would hate to give an event special permission if it would lead to a number of cases, which could lead to quarantines, which could lead to cancellation of events. So it's a big question, one we've faced many times, and that's what I have to present to you tonight, and I can certainly answer any questions.
Questions. The first one is, what did the Pops concert do last year?
Canceled.
Okay.
And again, nobody's here to answer that because canceled. Yes, thank you. It was canceled.
Thanks. Second, we received an email, but I'm wondering if this request has made its way through the chain of command from the choral person to the principal or did it skip to us?
Partially. It partially made its way through.
Okay.
I think because of time restrictions, it jumped to me, which then jumped to you.
But who did it come from to you?
To get up before it went to you, were the decisions made before it reached your instance?
There were conversations with Mr. Steckbauer, the principal, but no decisions had been made yet.
Okay.
And then my third question is, has the option of doing this totally virtually been explored? Because if it was totally virtual, wouldn't the solo acts be alone with no other people? I mean, that would be a way to do it maskless, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what that option, let me just check. Do you happen to know, Doctor, was it explored?
Okay.
I can just speak speak to the general guidelines. Marie Northup, the K-12 Fine Arts Coordinator, Angie Lloyd, and I worked together to put together an event template with guidelines that then teachers and principals could use that to bring events to us with kind of their modifications. So as part of that, one of the things we ask teachers to consider is what's the best way. Do you want to do an event virtually? Do you want to do it with an in-person audience? Do you want to do both? So that's been kind of explored by everybody, and what the West Pop Concert Group decided to do is to do the live performances and offer the virtual option. Does that
Okay.
answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
And I guess first, the statement is what we're talking about is precedent, right? And so we've got to think about that. Precedent in the school board reversing a policy for a single instance, but that, of course, opens up the opportunity to reverse it for other instances as well, and gives, of course, an argument of anybody later down the road. Now, we can hope that the mask requirement ends this year. And if it doesn't, we can hope it ends sometime early next year. But we got to keep that in mind. And of course, this probably won't be the last pandemic in our lifetimes. So we need to be aware of what we're doing here tonight. Looking at this paper that the superintendent passed around gives me a little better picture of the nature of the acts, that we have solos, we have duets, and we have very small group performances. When each of these are going on with the solos, I assume nobody else is on the stage?
Correct.
Okay, so they're socially distanced. With a duet, can they be 6+ feet apart?
Yes.
With the 3 to 6 members, can they be 6 + 3 apart?
Yes.
Okay.
For singing, all the recommendations I could find were with a mask, it's 12 foot of distance because you're projecting more.
Okay, that's an additional issue, of course, that we need to think about. And is that possible with the 3 to 6 member groups?
I think that would be very challenging.
The 12 feet. 12 feet would be difficult, probably not.
Okay. And one of the arguments that the petitioners made is that there are a lot of other instances where students are unmasked. Lunch, but of course you're not projecting as you would be when you're singing. And hopefully we're not allowing students to have lunch in close contact with each other with different groups of students every day. You wouldn't want that. And I know the performers have been around each other for a while, so that's not necessarily a distinction. What about the locker room argument? I mean, do we have students using the locker rooms without masks?
Locker room use has been very limited.
Okay, that's what I had thought. Okay, so we're very limited locker room usage, and the students are masked, I assume, when they can be masked in the locker room. Okay, so it's not necessarily an analogy there. Okay, that's it for me for the moment.
Thank you.
I did just want to clarify. So your answer to Dr. Lee's question was that with the solo acts, it's just the vocal performer on the stage. There aren't other musicians.
Suppose it could be an accompanist?
That's typically been the case, and I'm just curious if it has modified, because if that's the case, we could still have a keyboardist, a guitarist, a drummer, so it wouldn't just be a vocal performer on the stage by themselves.
I don't know that detail,
Okay.
but you're right, there probably will be an accompanist.
I would think so. I do have a couple of concerns. I did want to go back to a timing concern that was raised first by Beth, and then Jeff mentioned it. So we're receiving this request less than a week before the concert, and I'm curious, having gone to West and performed in the pop concert, it doesn't happen overnight. There's a lot of planning that is involved. There's auditions. I see that the choirs have been eliminated, so that certainly is one thing. But when these students tried out, were they informed you will be wearing masks on stage?
Yes. We actually just talked about that before. When the music teachers submitted the request, one of the first notes was that students would be masked.
Okay, so that was a student agreement in essence by auditioning, and then by being selected to perform, they knew that this was a requirement. So I appreciate that level of clarity. And I think the equity issue is really important. Of course, this is an amazing event that Wausau West does, but the other schools have put on things, whether it's musicals or plays, I'm not exactly sure. We didn't receive a request from any choir director. We didn't receive a request from the principal. And the timing is just very late. And the last thing I'll share is DPI still also recommends the wearing of masks for choir performances and vocal performances. Okay.
I have another question before we do that, because I need some clarity on what the motion means. In that, does passing the motion mean that it's just up to the students to decide on their own whether to wear masks or not? Or does it mean we're lifting the mask order for the pop concert and administration can decide which performers or performances need masks? The reason I ask that question is I support one of those, not the other. I don't support just leaving it up to students to decide whether to wear masks or not. I do support giving administration the ability to decide, okay, here's a solo performance. The solo performer is not going to be next to anyone. He doesn't need to wear a mask. Or, I've gone to pop concerts for 30 years. So you got 4 people sitting up on stools, all spread out, singing, not next to each other, then they don't need a mask. And maybe that's every performance, or maybe that's only a few performances. I don't know. We don't know the details of how they're going to look. We talked already. We don't know. Is there a drummer and a bunch of guitarists and a whole group of people up there? So I support giving that discretion to administration to decide where the masks are needed. I don't support just leaving it open to students to decide on their own.
Then you need to make an amendment, right?
Well, I don't.
That would have been my intent, is that the administration, choir directors, whomever we have to specify, it would be at their discretion as to whether or not it was required.
And that discussion could include everybody still wearing masks, presumably, within their discretion.
If the administration felt that that was the best option for whatever reason, then yes, they could say, absolutely. We're giving them the latitude to use their best judgment to make that decision.
I'm just curious why this didn't come from them then, the request,
Well,
if they wanted that discretion.
I don't want to answer for administration, but I'll throw something out there anyway.
Okay.
It's much easier for administration if we just say, everybody wears a mask, or we say, kids decide on your own. That makes it much easier for administration, as opposed to us putting it on administration to make that determination, because there might be some hard decisions. There might be this performance, everybody's spaced out, and we're going to go without masks. And this one, we're sorry, but there's people close together. There's too many people on stage. This one, we're going to wear masks. And so I don't know that it's necessarily an easy decision, but that's a guess that I have.
What about the precedent-setting argument?
I think we're going to be discussing masks for many different activities in the next few months. We're going to be talking about how we're going to open up school for the year. We're going to be talking about outdoor sports. We're going to be talking about lots of things, I think.
Okay, so it sounds like Pat's motion doesn't need to be recrafted, if I'm hearing the two of you correctly, that
Yeah.
the motion currently is to leave it to administration to make the determination.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that explanation. It just was a big difference for me as to whether it's our adults making that safety determination or our students deciding it on their own.
Okay.
Superintendent or a designee to make the decision.
Okay, one final comment that I wanted to make in regards to safety is I am concerned about the students that are participating because they do feel safe because of the mask wearing. They are aware that that was going to be a requirement, and for the potential change to come and say, we know we told you this, but we're changing our minds. We know that masks protect the other people, and if some students aren't wearing masks, others might not feel safe. I also am wondering whether the ticket sales indicate that all performers will be wearing masks, because if that's not the case, then there could be an issue there as well.
I don't have an answer for that one.
Well, I think that the point you made about some students may be comfortable, some may not, is one of the reasons why I didn't want to just leave it up to the students, because there may be 3 students standing right next to each other and 2 of them decide they don't want to, and the one isn't comfortable with that, whereas administration can look at that and say, hey, you 3 are all within a foot of each other singing for the next 5 minutes. You're going to have to wear masks, whereas you 3 are all spread out. You're doing a solo act. You're up in front and you're not near anyone. You don't have to. I think administration can make those decisions, and the board doesn't need to be getting into the details of which performance.
Okay.
Teach and lead our kids every day. I have all the confidence in the world they're going to do it what's in the best interest of the kids tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, whatever the day is. Just empower them to make those decisions.
I believe Jane just called the question, so
Okay.
I just want to put that up there.
Okay.
And you immediately go for a vote.
Well, that's a motion. I'm just pointing that out.
Okay, are we ready to vote on this then? Okay. So, okay, well, there's a request for a roll call vote. Could we have that motion read back just for clarity, since there was that discussion?
To allow students to perform without masks at the Wausau West Pop concert with administration discretion.
Yes, okay.
I think we all understand what that means.
Okay. So, then that will be a roll call vote.
Jim Boucher,
Yes.
Jeff Lee. Tal Lowe,
No.
Beth Martin,
No.
Pat McKee,
Yes.
Jane Bruce,
No.
Lance Trollo,
Yes.
Lee Webster,
Go ahead. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so that motion did pass, 5 yes, 4 no. It will be left up to the administration to make that determination in their discretion. Thank you. With that, I am seeking a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, that's a first by Pat McKee, a second by Jim Boucher. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.